When my husband brought his pregnant mistress home for me to wait on hand and foot, I objected only for him to slap me across the face and yell, "If you cannot serve, get out," I sneered. "Fine. I will do exactly as you wish." Can you believe it? On the very night of our 5th wedding anniversary, the man I had spent my entire youth supporting, the man to whom I had handed the CEO position of our company, casually walked through the front door with a heavily pregnant woman in his arms. The traitor did not even try to hide it. Instead, he and my mother-in-law forced me to bow down and cater to his mistress. A blinding slap landed on my face when I dared to speak up, but that strike did not make me cry. It merely shattered my facade of endurance, awakening a cold-blooded Eleanor Harper, who began to set a flawless trap to strip the traitor of absolutely everything he owned. It was 8:00 in the evening, and the rain was pouring outside. On the dining table, the anniversary cake I had painstakingly prepared was beginning to melt. The click of the lock echoed, and the oak door swung open. Julian walked in, his arm wrapped tightly around the waist of a young woman in a form-fitting maternity dress. Right behind them was my mother-in-law, carrying bags of expensive organic supplements, carefully supporting the young woman as if she were a living saint. "Oh my goodness, walk slowly, dear. The hardwood floors are slippery," my mother-in-law fussed. "Julian, grab Chloe those plush slippers from the closet. These cold floors are not good for my future grandson." I stood up, frozen, my heart feeling as though it were being crushed. I watched Julian, the man who was tenderly bending down to fetch slippers for another woman in our very own home. He looked up, meeting my eyes, without a single trace of embarrassment or remorse. His face was nothing but arrogant and shameless. "What are you standing there for? Do you not see we have a guest? Go to the guest bedroom right now. Change the sheets and put on the plush mattress topper. Starting today, Chloe will be staying here for her pregnancy. She is dealing with terrible morning sickness, so you better take good care of her. Bring her meals and drinks properly." I stood there, stunned. He brazenly brought his mistress home on our anniversary and forced his legal wife to serve her. "Are you out of your mind, Julian?" I demanded. "You brought another woman into our home and expect me to act as her maid. What is the meaning of this? What is so crazy about it?" My mother-in-law chimed in sharply. "Your husband is a CEO. Successful men having multiple women is entirely normal. You have been married to him for 5 years, and your stomach has remained completely flat. Chloe is carrying Julian's flesh and blood. She is carrying my precious grandson. You are the legal wife. If you do not know your place and serve her, then get lost. How dare you stand there and argue?" Every word from my mother-in-law was like a poisoned blade piercing my heart. 3 years ago, while working myself to exhaustion to save the company, when Julian messed up a major contract, I suffered a miscarriage and severe uterine damage. Back then, he knelt and swore that having me was all he ever needed. Now that the company was thriving, he draped himself in designer brands and used my deepest pain as an excuse to bring his mistress home. "This is my house," I stated firmly. "This property is under both our names. I absolutely will not accept any third party stepping foot in here. If you want to live with her, you move out, and as for me serving her, you must be dreaming." A resounding slap struck my face. I stumbled, crashing hard into the dining table. The plate of steak and the crystal wine glass shattered onto the floor. My cheek burned and blood trickled from the corner of my mouth. For the first time in 7 years, Julian hit me. He hit me for a mistress. "Shut your mouth," Julian roared. "Your house? What kind of delusion are you living in? I am the CEO of the company. I am the one who makes the money to pay for this house. You are just a useless parasite. Letting you keep the title of the CEO's wife is already a massive favor. Let me tell you right now, if you cannot serve her, if you cannot fulfill your duties as a parasite, then pack your bags and get the hell out of this house." "Exactly," my mother-in-law sneered. "She needed a good slap to wake her up. A barren woman has no right to be jealous. Chloe, come sit on the sofa with me. Wait for her to clean the room before you go in." I slowly stood up straight, wiping the blood from my lip. In that split second, the pain vanished, replaced only by a freezing aura that iced over all my emotions. He called me a parasite. He beat his chest and claimed he was the money-making CEO. He had conveniently forgotten who programmed the entire client database for Apex Dynamics. He had forgotten that the company's 3 biggest partners only signed their contracts out of respect for Eleanor Harper. He thought he held all the cards, but in reality, he was nothing more than a puppet on paper whose strings I pulled. A cold, lifeless smile slowly stretched across my lips. "Get out!" "Fine," I replied calmly. "A VIP guest is carrying your precious heir in my home. How could I dare kick her out? I will do exactly as you wish." "Glad you know your place," Julian scoffed. "If you are smart, you will be up at 6:00 tomorrow morning to make organic bone broth for Chloe. If you try any tricks that harm my child, I will end you." I did not bother replying. I turned my back and walked straight into the guest room, grabbing a new set of bedding. From the living room behind me, the cheerful laughter of the 3 of them echoed. They were triumphant, believing that Slap had completely subdued me, that I was too terrified of ending up homeless with nothing. So, I had to swallow my pride and bow down. They had no idea that the exact moment I smiled and turned away, a death warrant for the entire career and fortune of this family had been officially signed by me. Tossing the bedding onto the mattress, I immediately pulled out my phone and sent a text to Harrison, my best friend and a top-tier corporate attorney. I told him to activate Plan B. I then locked Julian's administrative access to the client database and began the legal paperwork to open a new corporation. It was time to pull in the net. That night, I locked the door to the master bedroom and opened my personal laptop. I accessed the company's financial system, letting the numbers flash across the screen. Suddenly, my eyes locked onto an abnormal withdrawal from 3 months ago. $100,000 had been transferred out under the guise of new project expenses. I traced the routing number, and the result made me laugh out loud. The receiving account belonged to Chloe Jenkins with a memo note, "Deposit for luxury condo in downtown Chicago." So Julian was not just cheating, he was embezzling money from my company to buy real estate for his mistress. I carefully saved all the bank statements and uploaded them to a highly secure cloud server. "Julian, you want to play the big boss with a beautiful wife and a smart kid, right? You want me to be your servant? Enjoy this arrogance while it lasts. I promise to play the role of the submissive, silent wife flawlessly so you all can climb to the absolute peak, and then I will personally cut the rope and let you free fall straight into hell." My performance as the obedient maid began the next day. At exactly 6 in the morning, I walked out of my room and straight into the kitchen. I meticulously prepared the organic bone broth, simmering it to perfection. My mind was entirely blank at that moment. No hatred, no pain, only the terrifying stillness of a predator laying a trap. The best hunter is not the one who growls and threatens, but the one who perfectly disguises themselves as docile prey. By 7, the smell of the broth filled the living room. The guest room door opened. My mother-in-law walked out first, followed by Chloe, who was rubbing her completely flat stomach and yawning dramatically. Julian emerged from the master bedroom, wearing an expensive tailored suit that I had ironed perfectly the night before. "Smells delicious." "That is the bone broth," my mother-in-law said. "Chloe, come eat while it is hot. Eat a lot so the little guy in your belly grows strong." When I was pregnant with Julian, I ate a huge bowl every morning, which is why he grew up so smart and became a CEO. "It smells too earthy, Martha," Chloe whined, covering her nose. "Waking up to this smell makes me nauseous. Did Eleanor put too much celery in it?" When someone has severe morning sickness, the cooking needs to be a bit more refined. "Did you hear her?" My mother-in-law snapped at me. "Cook it properly, if you cannot even handle a simple domestic chore, like taking care of a pregnant woman. What use are you in this house? Bring the broth over here and get Chloe a glass of warm milk." I silently ladled the broth into a bowl, brought it to the dining table, and placed it next to a freshly made glass of warm milk. I kept my head down, avoiding Julian's gaze, feigning complete submission and obedience. My restraint made Julian incredibly smug. He smoothed his suit jacket, crossed his legs, and read the news on his phone. Chloe picked up her spoon, stirred the broth, and frowned. She intentionally banged the spoon against the side of the ceramic bowl, creating a piercing noise. This is so bland. How am I supposed to swallow this? Eleanor, you cooked it terribly on purpose to torture us, didn't you? Julian looked at her. She is pretending to comply, but I am scared eating this will harm the baby. You malicious woman, my mother-in-law yelled. You cannot have kids, so you are jealous of Chloe's pregnancy, aren't you? Throw it out and make another batch. If you cannot cook it right, you will starve for lunch. Do not even think about touching the food. Maintaining a completely calm expression, I stepped up to the table and cleared the bowl away without a single word. I wanted them to believe I was utterly broken, that I was so terrified of being thrown out onto the streets that I was willing to be a servant. Julian watched me walk away, let out a cold scoff, and picked up his briefcase. I have an important meeting with the construction material suppliers today, so I will not be home for lunch, Julianne announced. You stay here and serve my mother and Chloe properly. If I hear my mother complain even once, I will deal with you tonight. Chloe, sweetheart, rest up today, take my black card and buy whatever you want online. Swipe it as much as you like. Do not worry about the money. I know, honey. Drive safely to work and make sure to eat lunch so your stomach does not hurt. Chloe cooed. Eleanor will take good care of me, do not worry. Julian slammed the front door shut. The moment the sound of his luxury SUV faded from the driveway, the atmosphere in the house shifted entirely. Without Julian there, my mother-in-law and Chloe completely dropped their civilized family act. My mother-in-law sprawled out on the sofa and turned the television volume all the way up. Chloe casually pulled out a pile of designer clothes she had brought and threw them all over the living room floor. Eleanor, take Chloe's clothes and wash them, my mother-in-law ordered, and remember to hand wash them gently. The washing machine will ruin the silk and chiffon. Once you are done, mop the staircase again. I see dust. Chloe is pregnant. If she slips and falls, can you pay for it with your life? Make sure you use the floral fabric softener, Chloe added. I cannot stand the smell of chemicals. Oh, and while you are at it, go to Whole Foods and buy me some premium Iranian saffron. Martha says, I need to drink it so the baby comes out with perfect skin. You pay for it out of your own pocket first. Consider it your contribution to welcoming the family heir. I nodded, scooped up the mistress's designer clothes, and walked toward the laundry room. Enjoy your power trip. The moment I was out of sight behind the laundry room door, I locked it. I threw all of Chloe's expensive silk clothes straight into the washing machine, dumped in a mountain of cheap detergent, and set it to the heaviest soil cycle. Then, I pulled 3 microscopic button-sized cameras from my apron pocket devices I had carefully ordered and received through a friend a few days prior. I took a deep breath, quickly tidied up, and carried a mop out to the hallway. Chloe and my mother-in-law had already retreated into the master bedroom to watch a movie in bed. This was my golden opportunity. I swiftly attached one hidden camera in a blind spot behind the large vase on the living room TV stand. Another was cleverly slipped into the vent of the air purifier in the hallway, and the last one was mounted in the kitchen. This camera system streamed data directly to my secure cloud server. Every arrogant word, every abusive action, every deceitful moment from my mother-in-law and the mistress under this roof would be recorded without missing a single second. This was not just evidence for my divorce. It was the weapon I would use to obliterate Julian's reputation when the time came. That afternoon, I used the excuse of going to the grocery store to buy the saffron to leave the house. In reality, I took a cab straight to a quiet, secluded coffee shop tucked away in a small alley in Wicker Park. Waiting for me in the corner booth was Harrison, a corporate litigation attorney, and my closest friend from college. As soon as he saw me, Harrison pushed a thick manila folder across the table. You are actually insane, Eleanor. Letting them drag you by the nose in your own house, and you are still holding it together. I ran the background check you asked for. That Chloe girl is no innocent flower. She used to be a bottle service girl at a few downtown nightclubs. She has been hooking up with Julian for over 6 months. Who even knows if that baby is actually his? She has a very complicated history, but we can deal with that later. Harrison continued, "The serious issue is right here. Look at this." I quickly flipped through the folder. The numbers on the paper sent a chill down my spine. It was not just the $100,000 for the condo deposit. Julian had been secretly draining Apex Dynamics reserve funds for the past 4 months through phantom supply contracts. He was signing purchase orders with a shell company to legalize the cash flow out of the business. He is funneling money to open a new company under Chloe's family's name, Harrison explained. Julian thinks you are only managing minor paperwork and has no idea you are watching his every move. If you do not act soon, the company you spent 5 years building will be nothing but a dry husk sitting on a mountain of debt. What is your plan? I closed the folder and lifted my black sugarless coffee, taking a sip. The bitter taste spread through my mouth, but it was nowhere near as bitter as what I was enduring. I will beat him at his own game, I said. He wants to gut the company. I will let him gut it, but he does not realize that the most valuable asset of Apex Dynamics is not the cash in the bank, but the core client database and the exclusive supplier network that I personally negotiated and secured. I need you to rush the incorporation of a new LLC, I instructed. You will be listed as the registered agent and legal representative, but I will be the anonymous owner holding 100% of the shares. Name the company Novate Solutions. Are you planning a golden parachute exit? Harrison asked, raising an eyebrow, pulling the entire client list to the new company and leaving him with a mountain of debt. Is that not a bit ruthless? Legally, you are still the vice president. You would have to shoulder half of that corporate debt. Ruthless? I scoffed. When he brought another woman into my home, forced me to serve her, and used my money to fund his affair. Did he care about being ruthless? Do not worry. I have calculated everything. The current client contracts are all nearing their expiration dates. I simply will not renew them under Apex Dynamics. As for the debt, I have a foolproof way to make him voluntarily assume 100% of the company shares and every single penny of that debt when we divorce. Your job right now is to finalize the legal paperwork for Novate swiftly and in absolute secrecy. Do not leak a single word until I give the signal. I left the coffee shop as the sky began to darken. Holding a cheap box of imitation saffron that I had carefully repackaged into a premium box, I returned to the house that harbored these cold-blooded thieves. Walking through the door, I reminded myself, every day I bow my head right now is one step closer to the day I crushed them all. 3 weeks passed under that shared roof. My life was nothing short of a silent play filled with endurance. Julian grew more outrageous by the day. He left early and came home late. And the moment he walked in, he would embrace Chloe right in front of me, treating me like an invisible ghost. My mother-in-law was even worse. She treated Chloe like a queen, waiting on her hand and foot while ordering me around with the most vicious insults imaginable. But I endured. I silently did everything they demanded. I silently recorded dozens of video clips of his adultery and their emotional abuse through my hidden camera network. However, my feigned submission made them hallucinate that I was thoroughly cowardly and terrified, and the final drop was about to make the glass overflow. It was a Saturday afternoon. Julian had the day off and was lounging at home. I was busy preparing dinner in the kitchen when Chloe purposely strolled by carrying a plate of fresh fruit. She smiled maliciously and intentionally missed a step. She dropped the expensive ceramic plate onto the kitchen floor. A harsh crash echoed and sharp shards flew everywhere. Oops, my hand slipped. Chloe gasped with fake innocence. Eleanor, clean that up and mop it thoroughly. If I step on a shard and bleed, Julian will be heartbroken. I guess women who cannot have kids just have to make up for it with their cleaning skills. Right? I gripped the chef's knife in my hand tightly, a murderous rage boiling in my chest. I wanted nothing more than to smash the handle of the knife straight into her shameless, powdered face, but I held back. I crouched down to sweep up the broken pieces. Seeing my silence, Chloe pushed her luck. She stepped right up to me and whispered into my ear with a triumphant mocking tone. You are so stubborn. Your husband does not love you. Your mother-in-law despises you, and yet you cling to this house like a leech. Do you think you get to be the CEO's wife forever? Let me tell you a secret. Julian is preparing to buy a brand new mansion in Winnetka under my name. Just wait until I give birth to this baby boy, and prepare to pack your bags and get thrown out onto the streets with absolutely nothing. I stopped sweeping. A mansion in Wetka? I knew the real estate market there. A luxury property would cost at least $2 million. Where on earth would Julian get that kind of money? Even if he was embezzling from the company, the cash flow could not cycle that fast. A dark premonition flashed through my mind. Right at that moment, the doorbell rang. I put the broom down and went to open the door. Standing outside was a courier from Chase Bank. Hello. I have a certified parcel from Chase Bank for Miss Julian Sterling, requiring a signature from a resident. I signed for it and carried the envelope inside. Julian was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through his phone while massaging Chloe's feet. My mother-in-law was peeling apples next to them. I walked over and tossed the envelope directly onto the glass coffee table in front of Julian. Mail from the bank addressed to you. Who told you to take it? Julian snapped. From now on, you are not allowed to touch my mail. Just leave it there. I will look at it later. I am not leaving it there. I looked him dead in the eye, and with my own hands, I ripped open the sealed envelope. I pulled out the crisp white document inside. The bold capitalized letters at the very top of the page hit me like a freight train. Notice of overdue interest payment, asset-backed mortgage loan. My eyes darted down to the collateral section. It was this house, the house under both our names, the one I was standing in. When did you mortgage this house to the bank? I demanded $1.5 million. Julian, you forged my signature to mortgage this house for $1.5 million. Julian flinched, a flash of panic crossing his face, but he quickly regained his domineering posture. He stood up abruptly and snatched the paper from my hand. It is my house. I have the right to mortgage it. What are you making a fuss about? I need capital to expand the business and invest in a major project. So, what about the signature? It is a joint marital asset. I signed on your behalf. Did it kill anyone? You are so annoying. Chloe groaned. Julian is doing big business, making millions to take care of the family. What is the big deal about mortgaging a house? You are such a short-sighted woman, always dragging your husband down. She is right, my mother-in-law piled on. Julian is the breadwinner. He knows what he is doing. You spend all day hiding in the kitchen. What do you know about business? Shut your mouth and go cook dinner. I laughed, a bitter, bone-chilling laugh. The shamelessness of this family truly had no bottom. They were colluding to treat me like an absolute fool. He forged my signature, mortgaged the house we were living in, and took out a $1.5 million loan. I was absolutely certain that money did not go into Apex Dynamics. It was used to buy that mansion in Winnetka for his mistress. Just as Chloe had taunted, he planned to build a new nest with his mistress and leave me with a massive bank debt hanging over my head, facing the threat of foreclosure and homelessness. Big business, project investments, or did you siphon the money to buy a new mansion for her? I asked, my voice deadly quiet. Are you really this treacherous, Julian? You forged my signature. That is felony fraud and embezzlement. Do you realize that, smack? Another slap landed hard on my face, so forceful it made my ear ring. Julian pointed his finger right in my face, red with rage from being exposed. Let me tell you something. Do not stand there and lecture me. The law. I am your husband. I have the right to decide every asset in this house. If you open your mouth to report this or make a scene, I will kick you out onto the street tonight with nothing but the clothes on your back. Go ahead and sue me. Let us see if the police believe a wealthy, powerful CEO like me or a useless parasite like you. I took a step back, touching my swollen cheek. Every ounce of hesitation, every last bit of mercy left in my soul for the 7 years of our youth was completely eradicated. Julian's stupidity and arrogance had dug an inescapable grave for himself. He thought he could manipulate the law and the banks through a few corrupt connections. He had no idea that the crime of forging a signature for a joint asset mortgage was a pair of open handcuffs just waiting for the perfect moment to lock around his wrists. "If that is what you say, I have nothing more to add," I said quietly. "Keep your money and spend it. Mortgage your house. From this second on, I will not interfere in any of your business ever again." I turned on my heel, walked straight to my bedroom, and slammed the door. Outside, I could hear my mother-in-law cursing me, Julian yelling, and Chloe whining to comfort him. They were victorious, believing I had completely surrendered to Julian's violence and power. But the moment the door locked, I immediately grabbed my phone and called Harrison. "Harrison, that bastard just forged my signature to mortgage the house for $1.5 million. Do you know anyone at Chase Bank? Get me a copy of his mortgage application. I want to see which loan officer turned a blind eye to let him forge my signature. I need the original file." "What? He actually went that far?" Harrison sounded shocked. "Do not worry. The branch manager over there owes me a favor. I will pull the file right now. Eleanor, if he has stooped this low, do not hesitate anymore. Go all in. Starting tomorrow, the corporate takeover plan is officially activated. I declared I am going to show him exactly what it costs to underestimate a woman who built him up from the absolute bottom." Monday morning, I left the house very early, long before Julian woke up. I wore an elegant black business suit, my hair pulled back in a sleek bun, and slipped into a pair of sharp stilettos. My makeup was bold, hiding the faint red mark on my cheek from yesterday's slap. It had been a long time since I appeared at Apex Dynamics as the vice president. Ever since I stepped back to support him behind the scenes, I had only managed operations through emails and the back-end system. But today, I was showing up in person, not to work, but to execute the final lethal drain of the company's lifeblood. Apex Dynamics was located on the 15th floor of a bustling downtown office building. As I walked in, the employees nodded in greeting, their eyes showing respect mixed with a bit of surprise. They all knew that while Julian was the figurehead CEO who took the heat, the true soul of the company, the one who solved the most impossible client crisis, was always me. I walked straight into my office and locked the door. Booting up my computer, I plugged in a secure USB drive. The Apex Dynamics client database was split into two tiers. Tier 1 was retail clients providing fragmented revenue and constantly delaying payments. This was the tier Julian usually handled, wining and dining them to close deals. Tier 2 consisted of enterprise clients, massive real estate developers, and exclusive material suppliers offering massive discounts. This entire second tier was negotiated, maintained, and managed entirely by me. I opened the system and began copying every single piece of data, contracts, transaction histories, and contact information for the VIP tier. Then I opened an encryption program and reprogrammed the entire access password for this database on the company server, setting it to auto-delete the files if the password was entered incorrectly more than 3 times. Julian was a tech illiterate. He only knew how to show up to the office, sign papers, and go drink. He would never discover the emptiness of the system until it was far too late. Finishing up at the office, I drove straight to a private restaurant in the Fulton Market District. Waiting for me in the VIP dining room were 3 middle-aged men, Mr. Davis, Mr. Ford, and Mr. Hayes. They were the 3 largest construction material suppliers and contractors, holding the lifeline to 80% of Apex Dynamics revenue. Seeing me, Mr. Davis smiled and stood up. "Eleanor, it has been a while since you showed your face. Apex Dynamics has been a bit of a mess lately. Julian keeps rushing us for deliveries, but he keeps delaying the outstanding payments. If it were not for our respect for your reputation all these years, I would have canceled the contract a long time ago." "Good to see you, Mr. Davis, Mr. Ford, Mr. Hayes," I greeted them. "I invited you all here today to talk about the future of our upcoming contracts. I will be blunt. Julian and I are getting a divorce. Apex Dynamics is currently nothing but an empty shell. Julian has gutted the company to fund personal investments and taken out massive bank loans. If you continue supplying Apex, the risk of losing your outstanding balances completely is incredibly high." The three men looked at each other in stunned silence. In the business world, credibility is the most expensive currency. They did business with Apex because of my transparency, fairness, and sharp mind, not out of any respect for a pompous fool like Julian. Mr. Ford frowned and spoke up. Divorce? Then what about the old debts and the ongoing projects? Eleanor, we trusted you, which is why we let the credit line run so high. You trusted me, and I will never let the people who supported me suffer a loss. I reassured them. I came here today with a proposal. Novate Solutions LLC has been officially incorporated. That mad management systems are completely independent, and I am the one running it behind the scenes. I propose that you decline to renew any new contracts with Apex Dynamics at the end of this month. Sign all new projects directly with Novate. In return, I will increase your discount rate by 5% for the first year. As for the old debt with Apex, you follow the law strictly. When the payment is due and Julian fails to pay, you immediately file a lawsuit and freeze Apex's accounts. Do not show any mercy. The room fell silent for a few minutes. These seasoned businessmen were old wolves. They quickly assessed the risks and rewards. Mr. Davis nodded approvingly, lifting his teacup. Hell hath no fury like a woman betrayed. Julian messed with the wrong person. I support you. After doing business with you for years, I know you deliver on your promises. My contracts will move to Novatech next month. The other two men agreed as well. The negotiation was a flawless success. I had drained the core lifeblood of Apex Dynamics in a single morning. Now, Julian's company was nothing but a soulless corpse carrying tens of millions of dollars in impending debt with its revenue streams entirely severed by me. Returning home at dusk, I slipped back into my usual facade of submission. The moment I walked in, Chloe's overpowering perfume hit my nose. Julian was sitting on the bench taking off his shoes, his face flushed with the stench of alcohol. He had just returned from entertaining clients. Seeing me, he lifted his chin and tossed a stack of paperwork onto the glass coffee table. Where have you been all day? He slurred. The house is filthy and not cleaned. Come over here and sign these authorization forms. The accounting department just sent them over. They need the vice president's signature to finalize the disbursement payments for the subcontractors. Hurry up. I have to take Chloe out to a nice steakhouse. I walked over and picked up the stack of papers to examine them. They were acceptance reports and payment vouchers for the secondary subcontractors, the retail client tier he managed. These projects were actually operating at a massive loss, heavily over budget, because he had been skimming off the materials. I looked closely. He wanted me to sign here to legitimize the losses, making me legally co-responsible if the company went bankrupt. There are too many irregular expenses in these documents, I said softly. I need time to cross-reference them with the accounting ledger before I can sign. You talk too much, Julian snapped. Are you doubting me? I am the CEO. If I tell you to sign, you sign. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is for me to network and keep this company afloat? All you do is sit at home like a parasite, and you are giving me an attitude over signing a few papers. If you won't sign, then get lost. I will just forge your signature myself, just like with the mortgage. What are you going to do about it? Eleanor, stop making things difficult for Julian. Chloe chimed in. He is exhausted from making money for this family. If you cannot help, at least do not get in his way. I lowered my head, hiding the smile rising on my lips. He wanted to forge my signature. Perfect. Harrison already had a certified copy of his forged signature on the $1.5 million bank loan. If he continued to personally forge my name on the company's lost documents, he would literally be tying the noose of financial fraud around his own neck. Do whatever you want, I said softly. I am tired. I do not care anymore. I dropped the papers back onto the table and walked straight into the kitchen to cook dinner for my mother-in-law. Standing behind the kitchen door, I could hear the scratching of Julian's pen as he rapidly forged my name across the stack of documents. He signed my name so carelessly and arrogantly, thinking he had successfully manipulated a weak woman. Little did he know, every stroke of his pen was a step closer to the gates of a federal penitentiary. The corporate takeover was complete. The new company was operating in the shadows. The evidence of fraud was locked in my lawyer's safe. The trap was fully set. I only had to wait for the perfect moment to pull the net. And that moment, I decided, would be on the day this family felt the most proud, the most arrogant, the day they publicly announced the mistress and her precious heir to the entire extended family. Keep climbing higher, Julian. The fall will only be more agonizing. Every blade I was about to pull out would strike the exact weak points he prided himself on the most. The game was only just getting interesting. That Sunday, my mother-in-law decided to throw an extravagant brunch party. She personally called every prominent member of their extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins. Her excuse was a simple family get-together. But everyone walking through the door knew this was an official coming-out party for the mistress and the heir in her belly. Since the crack of dawn, I had been dragged out of bed. My mother-in-law threw a wad of cash onto the kitchen counter, ordering me to go to the farmer's market to buy premium seafood, prime rib, and organic chicken to prepare a massive feast. The whole family is coming today. You better cook properly, she threatened. If you cannot give birth, make up for it with your serving skills. Do not you dare walk around with a miserable look on your face. If you embarrass Julian and Chloe in front of the family, I will tear you apart. I quietly took the money, went to the market, and spent 5 hours chopping, mincing, and cooking in the sweltering kitchen. I wore old, faded loungewear, my hair tied up in a messy bun, sweating profusely, looking exactly like a real maid. By 11 in the morning, the relatives were pouring in. The spacious living room was suddenly as loud as a marketplace. Julian wore a silk button-down, his hair slicked back with expensive gel, standing at the door, shaking hands. But the most glaring sight was Chloe. She was wearing a bright red form-fitting maternity dress with a slit up the side, adorned with sparkling diamond jewelry that Julian had just bought her using the money from the mortgaged house. She strutted around arm in arm with Julian, greeting everyone. I carried the last tray of food to the table just in time to hear Julian's aunt speak up in her shrill voice. My Julian, you are looking quite prosperous these days. A big house, luxury cars, and now you are getting ready to welcome a son. Look at Chloe. You can tell she is very fertile. Well, a man has to do what he has to do for a child. Julian is the eldest son. If he does not have an heir, the ancestors would never forgive him. Eleanor has been firing blanks for years. It is just her fate. She has to step aside for someone else. Exactly. Another relative agreed. Successful men have options. As long as he takes care of the family and secures the bloodline, that is what matters. You two focus on taking care of that baby. Julian is so successful, and keeping Eleanor around to do the chores is basically doing her a favor, giving her a roof over her head. That is very charitable of you. Charitable? Step aside. I stood hidden behind the partition between the kitchen and the living room, my hands gripping the empty metal tray tightly. This family, these people stuffing their faces with food, bought with my money and cooked by my hands, were enthusiastically trampling on my dignity. They worshipped money and sons so blindly that seeing Julian's fake wealth made them bend all moral rules, elevating a homewrecker to the status of a queen. Do not worry, Auntie. Julian has everything calculated. My mother-in-law boasted. Eleanor might be useless and barren, but at least she is obedient. She knows her place. I told her to serve Chloe, and she did not dare say a word. Chloe is having a boy. The ultrasound was crystal clear. We will show you the pictures in a bit. He has a strong nose. Very healthy. Yes, I am just trying to eat well to give Julian a good, healthy son, Chloe said sweetly. Eleanor has been working so hard for me lately. She wakes up early every morning to cook nutritious meals for me. I told Julian we should just hire a maid, but he refused. He said outsiders aren't as clean as Eleanor. Why waste money on a maid when we have a barren wife sitting right here? We might as well make her work instead of feeding her for free all these years. Come on, Chloe. Get the ultrasound out of your purse and show everyone the new sprout of the Sterling family. I stepped fully out of the kitchen, carrying a fresh pot of hot tea, and slowly poured it into everyone's cups. Seeing me, they did not hold back at all. They looked at me with open disdain. Chloe smugly opened her designer bag, pulled out a color-printed ultrasound paper, and proudly spread it out on the glass table. Everyone crowded around, pointing and marveling at the blurry black and white image. "Oh wow, look at that high forehead. That nose is so defined. He is going to grow up to be a CEO just like his dad." I glanced over at the ultrasound paper on the table. It was a color printout from a private clinic, clearly noting 12 weeks, gender, male. But there was one thing this entire family, blinded by their pride, did not realize. Yesterday, Harrison had investigated and sent me Chloe's complete medical file. That ultrasound was a fake. To be exact, it was a piece of paper she had paid $500 to buy from a shady underground clinic. Chloe was indeed pregnant, but the fetus was only a little over 8 weeks old, making it physically impossible to determine gender that clearly. She forged the paper to solidify her position, forcing Julian to divorce me quickly and buy her that mansion. A ridiculously sloppy play, but it completely blinded these greedy fools. I slowly set the teapot down, keeping my head high, and offered a smile so gentle it was purely synthetic. "Congratulations, Julian. Congratulations, Martha. The Sterling family finally has an heir." Looking at the ultrasound, "I am so happy for you, Julian. But Julian, since all the relatives are here, when do you plan to give Chloe an official title? You cannot let the mother of your son live without a proper name. If the baby is born without it, is good that you know your place," Julian scoffed. "Once I wrap up a few massive contracts at the company next week, I will file the divorce papers. You better be ready to sign them. When we go to court, I will give you a little severance package for your wasted youth, but enough for you to rent a cheap apartment to survive. This house is already mortgaged, so do not expect a cut of it. Eleanor is so understanding." "That is wonderful," Chloe smirked. "Do not worry, I am not petty. If you are ever short on cash, just come to the company and find Julian. I will tell him to toss you some spare change. After all, you did cook broth and serve me for months." Mocking laughter erupted across the living room. They looked at me like a beaten dog accepting its fate. But they did not know that every cruel word, every confirmation of adultery, and Julian's explicit intent to deprive me of my assets had just been perfectly recorded by the device hidden in my apron pocket. I bent down to clear the empty plates, saying softly, "Then I will wait for the day you bring me the papers. Julian, I hope your career stays smooth and you can hold on to the empire you have. So you have the money to take care of her." I turned my back and walked into the kitchen. Today's party had ended flawlessly, exactly as I wanted. Julian's arrogance had reached its absolute peak. Chloe's shamelessness was fully exposed, and my mother-in-law was drunk on the dream of a grandson. They had climbed to the highest rung of their delusions. And now it was time for me to kick the ladder out from under them. On Monday morning, while Julian was still fast asleep, next to Chloe and my mother-in-law was snoring loudly in her room, I quietly zipped up the small suitcase I had packed days ago. Inside were just a few work outfits, personal items, and identification documents. I did not take a single valuable item bought with Julian's money. I left the house key on the glass coffee table in the living room, right next to the wedding ring I had taken off my finger. I walked out of the house that was once my sanctuary and locked the door. Without a sound, without a word of farewell, I left with empty hands exactly as they had wanted. By 9 light in the morning, I was sipping coffee in the CEO's office of Novatech Solutions, the new headquarters Harrison had perfectly arranged for me. Located on the 35th floor of a skyscraper, I had a panoramic view of the entire city with the wind howling against the massive glass windows. On my desk were 2 phones, one personal, one a business hotline. At exactly 10, the business phone started vibrating violently. The time bomb I had lit at Apex Dynamics had officially detonated. On the other end of the line, Harrison was calling from an encrypted number. "Eleanor," it exploded, "Julian is losing his mind at the Apex office. Davis, Ford, and Hayes all sent in indefinite contract cancellation notices at the same time. No explanations, no meetings. The head accountant at Apex just called to report that funding for the 3 biggest projects was suddenly pulled, and the warehouses are empty because suppliers cut off the materials. Brilliant work. And that is not all. Did you notify Chase Bank? I asked calmly. Initiate the foreclosure protocol on his $1.5 million loan. I want him to receive the bank's demand letter this afternoon. Done. The branch manager just signed the order issuing a notice of credit violation due to suspected fraud regarding the collateral. Let's see how Julian handles this hit. At the Apex Dynamics headquarters, according to my internal mole, everything was descending into absolute chaos. Julian stormed into the office, smashing furniture, frantically calling partners who refused to pick up. He screamed at employees and ordered the accountant to withdraw from the reserve fund, to buy materials on the black market to keep the projects alive. But when the accountant logged into the system, the reserve funds were locked and the client database was completely wiped out. All data had vanished as if it never existed. By 3 in the afternoon, my personal phone lit up. The caller ID read, "My husband." I let it ring 3 times before leisurely swiping to answer. I put it on speaker and leaned back in my plush leather chair. "Eleanor, where the hell are you hiding?" Julian screamed. "Why did you pack your bags and leave without saying a word? Where's the password to the client database? What the hell did you do to the company servers? You crazy." I smirked, my voice cold and steady, a stark contrast to his frantic lunacy. "Julian, watch your language. Did you not tell me yesterday that you were going to hand me divorce papers and kick me out on the street? I am just proactively giving you and Chloe the space you need for her pregnancy. As for the company, you are the CEO. Manage it yourself. I am just a parasite who only knows how to clean and serve. How would I know what is wrong with your servers?" "Do not play dumb with me," he roared. "Davis and Ford both canceled their contracts. They said they only work with you. You colluded with them to stab me in the back, didn't you? Tell me right now. What is the password? Restore the data immediately, or I will call the cops and have you arrested for corporate sabotage." I burst out laughing, the clear sound echoing across my spacious office. "Call the cops. Go ahead. Do not forget the data confidentiality agreement you personally signed. The clause clearly states that any data loss due to system errors falls entirely on the executive director. I quit my job this morning. Furthermore, those clients canceled because they saw your company no longer had the capacity to supply them. The fault is yours, Mr. CEO. Eleanor, I am begging you, do not do this." His tone suddenly shifted to sheer panic. "The company is drowning in debt. The bank just sent a notice of credit violation this afternoon, demanding immediate repayment of the $1.5 million loan. If I do not have clients, if I do not have cash flow, I am dead. I am begging you. Come back." Convinced Davis to resign. "I will give you a percentage of the profits. Just yesterday morning, you were arrogant enough to threaten to tear me apart, and yesterday afternoon you promised to throw me out with nothing," I replied icily, "and now you are begging me." The true nature of a rabid dog backed into a corner is always this pathetic. "You are begging me on what grounds? As the man who brought his mistress home and forced his wife to serve her? Or as the man who forged my signature to mortgage our house and buy a mansion for her? Julian, that CEO chair of yours hasn't even warmed up yet. You made your bed. Now lie in it. Have fun dealing with your debt, and make sure to take good care of Chloe's pregnancy. Do not let the debt collectors scare her into a miscarriage when they come to seize the house." I hung up, blocked Julian's number immediately, and tossed the phone aside. I stood up and poured myself a glass of red wine. The first bomb had detonated beautifully, obliterating the traitor's facade of power. But I knew that with Julian's greedy and cowardly nature, he would not give up easily. He would bite and claw to survive, and his next move would undoubtedly target the weakest point he thought he could use to choke me. Just 3 days after Apex Dynamics' supply chain collapsed, Julian was backed into a dead end. The bank called relentlessly, industrious payments, and threatening to foreclose on the more. The company had no new projects and zero cash flow. driven to the brink of insanity with dark circles under his eyes and his clothes disheveled and unable to find me at my usual spots. He resorted to the lowest tactic possible, attacking my family. That morning, I received a frantic call from my mother in Wisconsin. Her voice was panicked and choked with tears. Eleanor Julian is here at the farm. He is causing a massive scene. He says the company is bankrupt and you two are about to be homeless. He is demanding that your father and I sell the highway front property to save him. Your father got so angry his blood pressure spiked. He is in bed right now. You need to come home immediately. My blood boiled. I gripped my phone so tightly I thought it might shatter. That bastard. He cheated. He embezzled company funds to sugar baby his mistress. And when everything fell apart, he did not dare ask his mistress for the money back. Instead, he had the audacity to run to his in-laws and force them to sell their ancestral land to pay off his debts. I immediately got in my car and drove like a maniac to Wisconsin, speeding over 100 miles. I slammed the brakes in front of the farmhouse gates. As soon as I stepped onto the porch, I heard Julian's loud, shameless voice echoing from the living room, backed up by my mother-in-law, who had apparently tagged along to apply pressure. "You have to care for your children," Julian shouted. "Eleanor is my wife. The company is joint marital property. Now that the company is in crisis and drowning in debt, you have that vacant highway land. Sell it, and it will fetch enough millions to save us. Are you going to hoard your land and watch your daughter end up begging on the streets?" He is right. My mother-in-law added shrilly, "Your daughter married into my family and lived in luxury for years. Now that her husband's family is in trouble, her side of the family has a responsibility to step up and sell the land to save Julian. Once he bounces back, he will buy you a bigger piece of land. Eleanor is barren anyway. The fact that we have not sent her back to the manufacturer is already a massive act of charity." I stomped over the threshold, my heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. I stared directly at the two despicable faces trying to extort my parents. My father was lying on the recliner, clutching his chest, breathing heavily. My mother stood next to him, tears in her eyes. "Shut your filthy mouths." My shout was so cold and commanding that both Julian and my mother-in-law jumped and spun around. Seeing me, Julian's eyes lit up like he had found a life raft. He lunged forward to grab my arm, but I swatted him away violently. "Eleanor, there you are. Where have you been hiding?" he demanded. "Convince your parents to sell the land right now. The company is about to be seized. The loan sharks are coming for me. You are my wife. You have an obligation to save me, to save our company." "Our company? Are you not sick to your stomach saying those words, Julian?" I sneered. "When you were in bed with Chloe, when you forged my signature for $1.5 million to buy a mansion under her name. Did you think about me? When your mother cursed me out and forced me to serve your mistress, did she think of me as a daughter-in-law? Now that you are drowning in debt, you come here to force my parents to sell their land. You are lower than a rabid street dog. You. How dare you speak to us like that?" My mother-in-law shrieked. "You are a daughter-in-law. How dare you curse your husband and me? Your parents cannot take their land to the grave. What is wrong with selling it to save your husband? Let me tell you. If you do not get the money, I will make Julian divorce you immediately and leave you completely ruined." I smiled faintly, looking at her like she was a pile of garbage. Then I slowly opened my designer handbag, pulled out a pre-drafted stack of documents, and threw them directly into Julian's face. The papers fluttered down onto the coffee table. "No need for you to force it," I said. "These are the divorce papers already signed by me. The joint asset, the mortgaged house, I forfeit to you. Apex Dynamics and the mountain of debt you forged to create, I forfeit to you. I am walking away with nothing. Sign it, then go free to marry Chloe and worship your precious heir. But if you touch 1 inch of my parents' land, I will chop your hands off." Julian stared wide-eyed at the bold letters, petitioned for dissolution of marriage. He picked up the papers, his hands trembling. He was not stupid. He knew that if he signed this agreement with these asset division terms, he would officially assume 100% of the responsibility for repaying the bank and the contractors. I had carefully stipulated in the petition that all mortgages and corporate debts after the signing date were the sole personal obligation of the legal representative him. You are setting me up," Julian stammered. "You are trying to dodge the debt. You are the vice president. Do you think you can escape this? I won't sign. You have to shoulder this debt with me. If you do not sell your parents' land, I will take you to court and force you to split the 1.5 million. I stepped right up to Julian, my eyes like two razor blades piercing through his cowardice. "Sue me. On what grounds? Did you forget I have the file proving you forged my signature to mortgage the house? Did you forget the stack of loss invoices you personally forged my name on to legitimize your embezzlement? If you do not sign this divorce paper right now, tomorrow morning, I will take all that evidence to the FBI and the Financial Crimes Unit. You won't just lose the house, Julian. The federal penalty for wire fraud and forgery over $1 million is 15 to 20 years. Do you want to rot in federal prison, or do you want to sign this and take your chances on the outside? Choose." Julian's face turned ashen. His breathing grew heavy, his eyes darting frantically in sheer panic. He knew I was not bluffing. Hearing the word prison, my mother-in-law's legs gave out and she collapsed onto the sofa. "Prison? Why prison? Julian, tell me she is lying. You are a CEO. Who would dare arrest you?" Ignored her, whining. I slapped a pen down hard onto the divorce papers. "Sign. If you still want the freedom to have your wedding with your mistress, sign it right now and get the hell out of my parents' house. Do not make me call the sheriff to drag you two out like stray dogs." Julian picked up the pen, his hand sweating profusely. He bit his lip until it bled. He was standing at a crossroad. Go to prison immediately for fraud, or take on a massive debt, but keep his freedom and cling to the hope of his mistress and the baby. Given his selfish and foolish nature, of course, he chose the latter. He pressed the pen down and angrily scrolled his signature on the husband's line, glaring at me with extreme malice. He was still hallucinating that he could maneuver his way out of this, that the mansion in Wetco was still safe. He had no idea this was a bet he could never win, and his doomsday was already scheduled by me for the exact day he was looking forward to the most. This divorce paper was just the first shovel of dirt on his grave. It took exactly 2 weeks from day. Julian gritted his teeth and signed the divorce papers for the court to officially issue the dissolution of marriage, a speed that was almost unbelievable. But I knew this speed was not a favor from the court. Julian had used the very last pennies in his personal account to bribe expeditors to push the process through. He was racing against time. He wanted to kick me to the curb quickly so he could legitimately bring his mistress through the front door. And more importantly, he thought this divorce decree was his get-out-of-jail-free card, clearing him of any entanglements with me. Stepping out of the county courthouse that morning, the sky was crystal clear. The suffocating atmosphere that had haunted me for months felt completely gone. I took a deep breath, feeling freedom flow through my veins. Before I could walk down the steps, Julian followed closely behind. He was decked out in a light cold tailored suit. His hair slicked back perfectly. He did not look like a man carrying $1.5 million in bank debt and a collapsing company. Instead, his face radiated extreme smugness and arrogance. "So, Eleanor, you signed it," Julian mocked. "You are walking away with empty hands. No house, no car, no company. You think you pushed the Apex debt onto me and won. You are too naive. I am a CEO. I have dozens of ways to handle this. Worst case, I declare bankruptcy for Apex Dynamics. Let the bank foreclose on the old house. I still have the Weta mansion that I carefully put under Chloe's name. I can start over. I still have a beautiful wife and a son on the way. And you? A barren woman with nothing. Let's see how long you survive in Chicago." I stopped and turned to look at the man who used to be my husband. His stupidity truly had reached enlightenment. He thought transferring the money to Chloe's name for the mansion was a master stroke. He thought the law was a joke he could manipulate at will. "You are a great calculator, Julian," I said smoothly. "So great that you tied the noose as around your own neck and still think it is a winner's medal. Hold on to that delusion. I wish you and Chloe a perfectly happy life in that mansion. Make sure you throw a massive wedding. Do not let the Sterling family heir suffer any indignity. I don't need you to remind me, Julian scoffed. At the end of this month, Chloe and I are having our wedding at the Waldorf Astoria. I will have an invitation delivered directly to your hands, so you can watch just how well I live without a roadblock like you. Julian sneered and walked down the steps. Waiting on the street below was Chloe, sitting inside a brand-new white Mercedes that Julian had recently bought for her on credit. Chloe rolled down the window, purposefully pulled down her designer sunglasses, shot me a look of pure pity, and gave a shameless little wave. Julian opened the door, got in, and the luxury car sped off, leaving behind a thin trail of exhaust. I smiled, pulled out my phone, and called Harrison. The familiar coffee shop was empty today. Harrison was waiting for me in the corner, a thick stack of legal documents on the table. I pulled out a chair and slid the divorce decree toward him. It is done legally. Julian and I have absolutely no ties left. All assets and debt obligations of Apex Dynamics plus the $1.5 million mortgage have all been recognized by the court as his sole responsibility based on our voluntary agreement. You are brilliant, Harrison laughed. He thinks he is so smart taking all the debt so he can quickly marry his new wife and keep the mansion. But he clearly does not understand federal anti-money laundering laws and asset forfeit regulations. Look at this. Harrison flipped open the file, pointing to bolded lines marked in red. I submitted all the evidence of him forging your signature to the Financial Crimes Unit. Chase Bank has also officially filed a criminal complaint against him for wire fraud and embezzlement. But the most important part, investigators traced the flow of that $1.5 million. It went from Apex Dynamics directly into Chloe's account labeled as a gift, and then she used that exact money to pay for the Wetka mansion. Under the law, assets purchased with illicit funds are subject to immediate seizure and forfeit to cover the damages regardless of whose name is on the deed. Right, exactly, I replied. The asset freeze on the mansion, and Chloe's bank accounts is sitting on the prosecutor's desk, waiting for a signature. He thought hiding the money in his mistress's pocket was safe, but he practically gift-wrapped the money-laundering evidence for the feds. I took a sip of hot tea. The perfect trap had snapped shut, cutting off every possible escape route for the traitor. Julian thought he could casually declare bankruptcy and walk away with the cash. He didn't know that the charges of fraud and forging documents would cost him everything. The house, the company, the mansion, and buy him a ticket to federal prison for decades. Push the investigators and the bank, I told Harrison. I want the freeze orders and the arrest warrants executed on exactly the 28th of this month. The 28th. Is there a special event that day? Why that specific date? That is the day Julian and Chloe are getting married, I said, a dangerous glint in my eye. His entire extended family, his friends and his business partners will be there. He wants a grand wedding to show off to the world, to prove he is successful, and to collect cash gifts to save his company. I am going to give him the most unforgettable wedding of his life. The wedding gift I prepared must be handed to him right in the middle of the stage. Harrison looked at me, shivered slightly, and then burst out laughing. It was a massive gamble, and I held the absolute winning hand. The despicable always die by their own greed and baseless arrogance. In the days that followed, while I was busy running Novatech Solutions and continuously signing massive contracts with Apex's former partners, Julian and Chloe were drowning in their own delusions. They threw money around like trash, renting the VIP ballroom at the Waldorf Astoria, ordering thousands of imported roses, and hiring the most expensive photographers in the city. They had no idea that the money they were spending was high-interest cash borrowed from shady private lenders, hoping to use the wedding cash gifts to pay it back. They were organizing a spectacular funeral for their own lives. And I was going to be the guest of honor, witnessing their final moment of glory plunge into absolute darkness. The 28th of the month arrived. The sky over Chicago was crystal clear, in the grandest ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria. Julian and Chloe's wedding was taking place in a setting of sheer extravagance. Thousands of crimson Ecuadorian roses were arranged into massive archways. Crystal chandeliers cast a glittering light over tables draped in white silk. Classical music drifted through the air, creating a flawless shell of fake prosperity. At exactly 11:30 a.m., I stepped out of a luxury town car driven by my company chauffeur and elegantly walked into the hotel lobby. I was no longer wearing the dark, submissive clothes I used to wear. I wore a stunning off-the-shoulder emerald green evening gown with a tasteful slit highlighting my figure, paired with elegant but incredibly expensive pearl jewelry. My hair fell in voluminous waves and my lips were painted a sharp red. I walked with such pride and radiance that every eye in the foyer gravitated toward me. In my hand, I held the gold-trimmed invitation Julian had intentionally sent to my office to assert his dominance. Walking up to the reception table, I saw my former mother-in-law. She was wearing a gaudy sequined red velvet dress, laughing loudly as she collected envelopes of cash from the guests. The moment she saw her smile vanished instantly. It was replaced by shock, followed by her usual look of deep contempt. "Good Lord, you have the nerve to actually show your face here," she spat. "Julian only sent you an invite to piss you off. I didn't think you would be shameless enough to actually show up. Look at you draped in fake designer knockoffs. Are you here to beg for pity, or are you trying to ruin my family's big day? If you are smart, you will get out right now, before I call security." I smiled a radiant but freezing smile. I gently placed a very thin envelope on the reception table. "Watch your mouth, Martha. I am here with a valid invitation. Furthermore, today is your son's big day, and I brought a very special gift. A gift that I guarantee your entire family will remember for the rest of their lives. Save your energy and enjoy the party." Before she could react, I strode past her and straight into the ballroom, selecting an empty table in a secluded corner that offered a perfect view of the stage. The 70 tables were packed. I scanned the room and noticed that many of Apex Dynamics' old partners were conspicuously absent. Julian had only managed to invite relatives from out of town, a few gold-digging acquaintances and his drinking buddies. Majestic music began to play. The MC walked onto the stage using his most booming voice to announce the start of the ceremony. The grand oak doors swung open. Julian, wearing a pristine white tuxedo, walked in arm with Chloe, who was wearing a massive puffy ball gown to hide her growing belly. They walked down the red carpet, their faces glowing with happiness. Thunderous applause erupted. My mother-in-law stood at the VIP table, continuously wiping away fake tears, looking utterly fulfilled. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced. "Today, we gather to witness the pinnacle of love. The groom, Julian Sterling, a successful entrepreneur, and the bride, the beautiful Chloe Jenkins. Let us give a massive round of applause to bless the happy couple." They stepped onto the stage. Julian took the microphone, clearing his throat, ready to deliver a cliché speech about love and success. But the exact moment he opened his mouth, a deafening sound erupted from the main entrance of the ballroom. The massive oak doors were shoved open violently. Every sound in the room ceased instantly. The music was cut. Everyone turned to look at the doors. Entering the ballroom was not late guests, but a squad of people in uniform. Leading the pack were two plain-clothed detectives flashing their badges, followed closely by uniformed police officers, a representative from the district attorney's office, and 3 agents from Chase Bank. Their faces were cold and stern, carrying the heavy pressure of the law, which instantly suffocated the luxurious room. The crowd gasped. Whispers erupted like a disturbed beehive. On stage, all the blood drained from Julian's face. The microphone slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a piercing screech. Chloe turned pale, clinging tightly to Julian's arm, her legs shaking so badly she nearly collapsed. At the VIP table, my mother-in-law stood frozen, her mouth hanging wide open. The lead detective took long, steady strides straight toward the stage, completely ignoring the shocked stares of the guests. He pulled a stamped warrant from his folder and held it up right in Julian's face. His authoritative voice echoed clearly through the hotel's sound system. "Julian Sterling, We are with the Financial Crimes Unit. We have a warrant for your arrest regarding the forgery of legal documents and the fraudulent embezzlement of $1.5 million from Chase Bank. You are required to come with us. The crowd erupted into absolute chaos. Shouts and frantic chatter filled the room. The relatives who had just been worshipping Julian like a god of wealth quickly backed away, looking at him as if he had the plague. No, you have made a mistake, Julian screamed, struggling desperately. I am a CEO. I did not defraud anyone. That house was mine. I just mortgaged it for business. You have no right to arrest me in the middle of my wedding. Chloe, call my lawyer. Call him right now. Julian thrashed and fought in vain as the cold steel handcuffs snapped securely around his wrists. At the same time, the bank representative stepped up, holding another stack of documents, and shot a freezing glare at Chloe. Miss Chloe Jenkins, the $1.5 million Julian Sterling embezzled was transferred directly into your account to purchase the mansion in Wetka. That property was acquired with illicit funds. We have a court order freezing your bank accounts and authorizing the immediate seizure of the property to recover the damages. You are ordered to vacate the premises and turn over the property to authorities by this afternoon. What? What nonsense are you talking about? Chloe shrieked, her facade breaking. That mansion is in my name. It is my property. Julian gave it to me. You have no right to take it. Julian, say something. The mansion is mine. I am carrying your child. Are you going to let them throw me out on the street? Chloe wailed hysterically, her heavy makeup running down her face. She lunged forward, trying to scratch and claw at the bankrupts, but was quickly pushed back by an officer. Oh my God, Julian, my precious grandson. My mother-in-law wailed, unable to handle the shock. You are framing my son. He is a CEO. She let out a horrific scream and collapsed onto the floor, fainting right there on the spot. Several relatives rushed over, frantically fanning her. A chaotic, tragic scene played out right on the most glamorous stage in front of hundreds of staring guests. I sat quietly at my corner table, elegantly raising my glass of red wine to eye level and giving it a gentle swirl. The chandelier light caught the wine, making it sparkle. I took a sip, letting the bitter and sweet flavors mix as they slid down my throat. A wedding soaked in tears, a perfect play had reached its finale, directed exactly as I had planned. The arrogance, the dirty money, the lies, all of it was reduced to ashes in the blink of an eye. The traitor was finally tasting what it felt like to be stripped of everything, his dignity trampled in front of hundreds of people. I slowly stood up, grabbed my designer bag, and walked gracefully toward the exit. As I passed the stage, Julian's desperate, manic eyes met mine. He thrashed, screaming my name with a mix of pure hatred and pathetic pleading. But I did not stop. I did not even bother giving him a look of pity. His journey through hell had only just begun, and the cruelest truth was still waiting for him ahead. After the arrest was executed, the ballroom looked like a battlefield. Guests scrambled to leave, nobody touching a single plate of food. The relatives who had been kissing up to him fled in a panic, terrified of being tied to the criminal investigation. Inside the hotel's VIP holding room, where the police were doing preliminary paperwork before transporting Julian to the precinct, the air was thick with humiliation and despair. My mother-in-law had regained consciousness and was sitting on the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably. Julian sat with his head bowed, his handcuffed hands resting on his lap, trembling all over like a beaten dog. I walked into the holding room, my heels clicking rhythmically against the red carpet. Seeing me, the police did not stop me. Harrison was standing with them, and had explained that I was a relevant party and the original victim of the fraud. Chloe was sitting in the corner, her elaborate hairstyle ruined, her wedding dress wrinkled. When she saw me walk in, her eyes lacked the arrogant dominance of a winner, they were filled only with panic. When she heard the bank representative confirm the mansion was being seized, her mask of an innocent, fragile victim had completely fallen off. No assets, no money. The CEO she was clinging to was now nothing but a broke criminal. Julian looked up, his eyes bloodshot, and stared at Chloe with desperate pleading. Chloe, sweetheart, calm down. I will have my lawyer handle this. Go home, pack up all your jewelry and watches, sell the car, and use the cash to bail me out. Just get me out on bail, and I will find a way. We still have our child. You have to wait for me, wait for you, bail you out? Chloe stood up abruptly, pointing her finger right in Julian's face, her voice shrill and echoing through the room. You lied to me. You said you were a billionaire CEO. You said you had the money to buy me a mansion. It turns out it was all fraud money mortgaged from your ex-wife's house. Now the mansion is gone and I am homeless. And the jewelry in the car, those are mine. Do not even think about touching them. I am not stupid enough to sell my things to save a broke criminal like you. What? What are you saying, Chloe? My mother-in-law gasped. You are the daughter-in-law of this family. You are carrying the sterling blood. Your huss, shut your mouth. You stupid old hag. Chloe fired back. Who is your daughter-in-law? Did you think I actually wanted the title of being married to a scammer? I was with him for the mansion and the money. Now he is a broke loser going to prison. Do you think I'm going to carry this belly around and visit him in prison for the rest of his life? You and him can go die together. You useless trash. I stood with my arms crossed, smirking as I watched this family tragedy unfold before my eyes. The traitor was being cursed and despised by his own mistress like he was less than a dog. My mother-in-law, who had kicked me out to welcome this queen, was now being so violently humiliated by her that she could not even speak. Julian stared in sheer disbelief. The woman, who just an hour ago had been whispering sweet nothings and walking down the aisle with him, had revealed her true form as a blood-sucking leech. You, how dare you? Julian choked out. I left my wife for you. I forged documents and stole 1.5 million just to buy you a house. I did everything for you, and you turn on me. If you do not care about me, at least think about the son in your belly. He is my flesh and blood. Flesh and blood? A son? I stepped forward, shattering the loud arguing. I pulled a brown envelope from my bag and slowly opened it. Julian, are you still so confident about that pregnancy? Your stupidity genuinely amazes me. I pulled out a stack of medical documents bearing the red stamp of the city's top maternity hospital and tossed them onto the coffee table right in front of Julian and his mother. Read it. Chloe's prenatal records. The day she stepped into our house, she bragged she was 12 weeks along. In reality, she was barely 6 weeks. And more importantly, here are the results of the NIP DNA test that my friend paid a nurse handsomely to get a copy of. I turned to look at Chloe, my eyes sharp as razors, locking onto the sheer terror rising on her face. Miss Chloe, would you like to explain to Julian who the real father of that baby is? Is it the truck driver or the DJ from the nightclub you hang around? Or do I need to read his social security number out loud for everyone here? The room went dead silent. My mother-in-law's eyes rolled back in her head, a rattling sound coming from her throat as if she were suffocating. Julian stared down at the DNA results. The bold letters 0% probability of paternity crushed the very last ounce of hope and patriarchal pride he had left. He had no heir, he had no son. He was nothing but a colossal, stupid placeholder who had destroyed his marriage, traded away his career, and sent himself to federal prison all to raise another man's child. You are lying. The papers are fake. Chloe stammered, backing away, cold sweat dripping down her forehead. Julian, do not believe this crazy. She hates me. She is framing me. But her weak defense and her frantically darting eyes confessed everything. Ah, you whore. I will kill you. Julian let out a barbaric roar, like a beast pushed into a corner. He lunged forward like a madman, ignoring his handcuffed wrists, headbutting Chloe squarely in the chest and kicking wildly at her. He had lost his mind. This brutal truth had completely destroyed his psychological defense. He lost his wife, lost his company, was facing 1.5 million in fraud charges. And now his ultimate pride, his child, was a spectacular scam. Defrayed of love, defrauded of money, defrayed of his bloodline. Karma had arrived too fast and too ruthlessly. Help! Help me! He is crazy! Chloe fell hard to the ground, clutching her stomach and screaming. The police officers immediately tackled Julian, using force to pin him face down against the floor. My mother-in-law clutched her chest, crying soundlessly, collapsing against the edge of the sofa. Standing tall, I coldly watched the chaotic, filthy scene of the people who had trampled on me, feeling not a single ounce of pity, not a shred of sympathy. Every bit of pain I had endured on the rainy night of our 5th anniversary. They were now paying back thousands of times over. Julian, my mother always told me, the higher you climb, the harder you fall, I said quietly. You wanted to put on a play, so I let you act it out to the very final scene. Now, enjoy your wedding gift. There is no fine dining in federal prison, so I hope you behave well. I turned on my heel and decisively walked out of the room. Behind me, Julian's screaming, Chloe's wailing, and my mother-in-law's groans blended into a perfectly tragic symphony. The masks had fallen. The naked truth was exposed. They had taken the knife and slaughtered each other's lives. And I walked out into the light with the pride of a woman who had personally reclaimed her own dignity. The sweetest revenge is not dirtying your own hands. It is letting despicable people tear each other apart until there is nothing left. Just 1 month after that fateful day at the Waldorf Astoria, the situation for those who had wronged me took a remarkably dark and filthy turn. Chase Bank moved with unprecedented speed. The asset seizure orders were executed immediately. The old house under our joint names, which Julian had forged my signature to mortgage, was foreclosed and sealed. Next, the luxury Wetka mansion that Julian bought with the $1.5 million in stolen funds was cordoned off with red tape and seized by the authorities for restitution. Julian remained in custody, awaiting trial. As for Chloe, the homewrecker, she certainly did not disappoint me when it came to her cold-blooded, pragmatic nature. The very night the wedding collapsed, taking advantage of the fact that authorities hadn't yet arrived to lock down the mansion, Chloe swept through the house, packing up all the diamond jewelry, Rolex watches, designer bags, and completely emptying the last bit of cash in Julian's safe before she fled without a trace. She ruthlessly pushed my mother-in-law out the front door into the dead of night, not letting her take a single thing other than the clothes on her back. One Friday afternoon, heavy rain was pouring over Chicago. I was sitting in my office on the 35th floor of Novate Solutions, flipping through new contracts worth millions in profit. A cup of chamomile tea emitted a soft fragrance on my desk. Suddenly, the internal line rang. It was the receptionist from the lobby. Miss Harper, there is a very disheveled older woman down here in the lobby insisting on seeing you. She is crying hysterically, saying she is your mother-in-law. Security tried to escort her out, but she threw herself on the floor screaming and throwing a tantrum, causing a scene. Do you want security to forcibly remove her? I frowned slightly, setting my pen down. A half-smile crept onto my lips. My mother-in-law, the queen who beat her chest and forced her daughter-in-law to step aside for her precious heir. No need for force, I said calmly. Let her stay there. I will come down and see her myself. I took the elevator down to the ground floor. Stepping out, a truly pathetic sight met my eyes. The woman sitting on the polished marble floor was indeed my former mother-in-law, but she was no longer wearing beaded velvet dresses, gold necklaces, or carrying designer bags. She wore filthy, torn, oversized clothes. Her graying hair was a tangled, wet mess. The plastic sandals on her feet were worn thin. Next to her was a trash bag filled with empty plastic bottles and broken cardboard. If I hadn't looked closely at her hollow, wrinkled face and her sunken, frantically darting eyes, I genuinely wouldn't have believed this was the woman who used to point her finger in my face and curse me out. Seeing me step out in a crisp white suit, sharp red heels, carrying the aura of a CEO, my mother-in-law acted as if she had found a life preserver in a flood. She crawled across the floor, lunging forward to grab my ankles, tears and snot running down her dirt-stained face. Eleanor. Eleanor, my child, it is me, your mother. I finally found you. Save me, please. I am starving to death. I stepped back coldly, forcefully yanking my leg away from her filthy hands. The physical contact disgusted me. Watch how you speak to me, I said sharply. I divorced your son. The court ruled it in black and white. I do not have a mother who is as treacherous and cruel as you. What are you doing here, Eleanor? I was wrong. I apologize 1,000,000 times over, she bawled. That evil Chloe tricked me. The night Julian was arrested, that stole all the money and jewelry and threw me out on the street. The bank seized everything. I don't have a single penny. My relatives all turned their backs on me. No one answers my calls. For over a month, I have been sleeping under a bridge, digging through the trash just to find something to eat. Eleanor, for the sake of me once being your mother-in-law for the 7 years you were married to Julian, give me a place to stay. You are a CEO now, you are so rich. Just give me a scrap of food, let me be the janitor and sweep your floors. Anything. I am begging you. She pressed her hands together, bowing repeatedly at my feet. Employees and clients passing through the lobby stopped, pointing and whispering. But I didn't care about the judgment of strangers. Pity was a luxury I would absolutely never waste on the people who had ruthlessly pushed me to the edge of a cliff. For the sake of 7 years, I scoffed. You have the nerve to mention those 7 years. For 7 years, I worked myself to the bone to provide for that house, serving you every meal, catering to your every need. Did you ever show me any mercy? That rainy night on our 5th anniversary, when your son brought his pregnant mistress home, what did you say? You called me a barren woman and told me to get out on the street to make room for your precious heir. I leaned down, staring directly into her terrified, cloudy eyes. My voice wasn't loud, but every word sliced through the air like a butcher's blade. When you cheered as your son slapped me, when you forced me to do laundry and cook bone broth for Chloe, did you think about mercy? You were so proud, weren't you? You took that fake ultrasound and paraded it around the entire family, humiliating me in front of everyone. Where is your precious heir now? Why don't you go find that truck driver and ask him for your grandson? Why don't you go find Chloe and demand she take care of you? Why come to me? I am the trash you spat out and now you want to lick it back up. Eleanor, I was possessed. I was confused, she wailed. I know my sins are heavy, but Julian is going to prison and I am old and sick with nowhere to go. You are all I have left, please be generous. Forgive an old woman just this once. I stood up straight, crossing my arms over my chest, my eyes as cold as a glacier. Karma had come for her, and honestly it was still too late. Did she think I was a rescue shelter? Listen to me carefully, I said. From the second you pushed me out of that house to welcome a piece of trash inside, you personally severed your own lifeline. Do not try to emotionally blackmail me with your old age. You reap what you sow. Take your time chewing on the bitter fruit your own greed produced. I turned to the 2 large security guards waiting nearby. Gentlemen, please escort this woman out of the building. If she continues to cause a disturbance, call the police and have her arrested for trespassing and public disturbance. My company is not a homeless shelter. Eleanor, do not be so heartless. You are a cold-blooded monster. God will punish you. When Julian gets out of prison, he won't let you get away with this. Let me go. Let me go. I turned on my heel and walked straight back to the elevator, completely ignoring her desperate screams and curses as the security guards dragged her out by her armpits into the pouring rain. The glass doors closed, completely cutting off their filthy world. I stepped into the elevator and took a deep breath. No guilt, no remorse. When someone pushes you to the absolute limit of pain, your heart naturally forms an impenetrable armor. Firmly punishing evil is the only way to protect your own goodness. 6 months later, the federal trial for Julian Sterling's wire fraud, embezzlement, and forgery officially commenced. On that day, I was present in court as an involved party and victim. I wore a sophisticated black tailored suit, exuding radiance and confidence as I walked into the front row of the courtroom. The atmosphere in the courtroom was solemn and cold. When the doors opened, federal marshals escorted Julian in, placing him at the defendant's table. The room went dead silent. I almost couldn't recognize the man who used to be my husband. He was no longer the slick, arrogant CEO with styled hair. Julian was now skeletal, his cheekbones jutting out. His head was shaved and he was swallowed up by an oversized prison jumpsuit. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken and vacant, filled with fear and regret. Just 6 months in county jail, waiting for trial, and he looked a decade older. Sitting in the row behind me was my mother-in-law. She was huddled in a corner, frail and emaciated. her bloodshot eyes continuously weeping as she looked at her son. For the past few months, she had been surviving entirely on the charity of a local homeless shelter. The trial began. The federal prosecutor read the indictment loudly and clearly. Every single one of Julian's crimes was laid bare before the law, forging his wife's signature to mortgage a joint asset worth $1.5 million and using the embezzled funds for personal use, with the intent to launder it by purchasing real estate under his mistress's name. The bank statements and handwriting analysis were irrefutable. During the defense, Julian's lawyer tried to argue for leniency, claiming Julian had no prior criminal record and that his actions were partly due to a lack of legal understanding and being blinded by emotion. However, against the ironclad evidence, all defense arguments were incredibly weak. Before the judge recessed to deliberate the sentencing, he allowed the defendant to make a final statement. Julian trembled as he gripped the wooden podium. He slowly turned his head, his desperate eyes searching for my silhouette in the gallery. His eyes welled with tears. The arrogance of the past had been crushed into dust by harsh reality. He bent his knees and suddenly dropped to the floor right in the middle of the courtroom, turning toward me. At the same time, my mother-in-law scrambled out of her seat, threw herself onto the cold floor, and began sobbing loudly. "Eleanor, I was wrong. I was so wrong," Julian cried. "I was bewitched by that demon. That is why I lost you, lost our family. These months in jail have been worse than death. Every night, I think about the days we struggled together to build the business. I am a bastard. I am an animal for betraying a loyal wife like you. Eleanor, I am begging you. Have mercy and save me. You are the victim. If you just write a letter to the judge asking for leniency, the court will go easy on me. I am begging you. Give me a chance to start over. Eleanor, I am begging you. I am bowing to you." My mother-in-law wailed. "Save Julian. If he goes to prison for over a decade, how will I survive? Please have pity on him. You two were husband and wife for 7 years. Write the letter, Eleanor." The courtroom erupted into whispers, all eyes fixed on me. Some were curious, others were waiting to see if this woman would soften at the belated tears of her ex-husband. I stood up slowly, my posture unshaken by their pathetic display. I looked straight into Julian's eyes, my clear, iron-willed voice ringing out across the silent courtroom. "Julian, Martha, do not use the word love to pollute the dignity of this courtroom. Are you regretful? No, you don't regret hurting me. You only regret getting caught when you slapped me to the floor. When you called me a parasite. When you signed the divorce papers to dump all the debt on my head so you could run off with your mistress. Did you remember our love?" Then I stepped out from the aisle, standing directly across from him. "You are begging me for a chance to live then. Who gave me a chance when you threw me out on the street with empty hands? The law is not a game for you to trample on when you feel like it and beg for mercy when you are scared. The bitter pill you are swallowing today is grown from the seeds of your own greed, lust, and cruelty. You want to start over? Fine. Go to prison, take off that fake CEO suit, put on your inmate uniform, and spend the next 15 years learning how to be a human being again. As for me, absolutely no letter of leniency will ever be written by Eleanor Harper. I trust the law to deliver true justice." Having spoken, I turned decisively and walked back to my seat. My unyielding words hit Julian like a death sentence. He collapsed against the wooden podium, howling like a beast whose throat had been slit. My mother-in-law fainted for the second time and had to be carried out by court bailiffs to the medical room. 15 minutes later, the judge returned. He stood up, his voice authoritative as he read the sentence. Based on federal statutes, the court finds the actions of the defendant, Julian Sterling, to be exceptionally severe, causing significant financial harm to individuals and institutions, demonstrating a blatant disregard for the law. The court sentences the defendant, Julian Sterling, to 3 years for forgery and 12 years for wire fraud and embezzlement. The sentences will be served consecutively, totaling 15 years in federal prison. The defendant is ordered to pay full restitution of $1.5 million to Chase Bank. The asset forfeit orders will remain in effect to ensure compliance. The sharp crack of the gavel echoed through the room, closing a case and officially closing the life of a despicable man. 15 years in federal prison, a sentence more than fitting for what he had done. The marshals pulled Julian to his feet and escorted him out to the armored transport van waiting in the courtyard. I watched his frail silhouette disappear behind the heavy steel doors. The long tragedy of pain and betrayal had finally dropped its curtain. A perfectly satisfying and just ending for everyone. The net of justice is wide and nothing slips through. The wicked finally had to pay with the rest of their lives behind iron bars. Chicago rolled into December. The weather was crisp and the freezing wind blew through the city streets. Standing on the balcony of my luxury penthouse, located in the most prime real estate downtown, I cupped my hands around a hot mug of chamomile tea, looking out at the millions of glittering lights below. A year had passed since that stormy, fateful night. A year of wild ups and downs, from the deepest depths of humiliation and trauma to standing up, baring my claws and demanding justice, and finally tasting the sweet fruit of my own pride. Novatech Solutions, under my leadership, had grown exponentially. Building on the trust of our old partners, I expanded into international markets, tripling the revenue we ever had at Apex Dynamics. I bought this penthouse myself and purchased a luxury car using the money earned entirely from my own brain and hard work. Everything in my life was now running smoothly, peacefully, and so brilliantly that it made people envious. Looking back at the journey, I sometimes ask myself, if Julian hadn't brought his mistress home on our anniversary, if he hadn't slapped me to the ground, where would I be today? I probably would have remained a wife hiding in the shadows, enduring my mother-in-law's daily abuse, draining my life force to build an empire for a traitor without ever knowing the truth. That slap, that cruelty turned out to be the ultimate blessing. It awakened the self-respect of a woman. It taught me that in this world, aside from the parents who gave birth to you, the only things that will never betray you are your own capabilities and the money in your own bank account. People always whisper that a woman's greatest profit in marriage is a child, and she should sacrifice everything else for a peaceful home. But blind sacrifice only creates ungrateful monsters. If you step back, they will think you are useless. If you endure and submit, they will think you are a coward, easily manipulated. Marriage is not a poker game where we bet our entire lives and assets on a man. Men might shield you when the sun is shining, but when the storm hits, they might very well be the ones bringing the hurricane. A woman's sharpest weapon is not her beauty, nor her desperate tears, nor screaming matches in the street. Our ultimate weapons are our intellect, our financial independence, and a cold, sharp stillness in our souls. When you have money, power, and capability, you have the right to dictate your own life. Anyone who hurts you, you can confidently kick them to the curb, walk away with your head held high, and never have to worry about how you will survive tomorrow. Money cannot buy true love, but it buys dignity, it buys safety, and it buys the right to choose how others treat you. The greatest revenge against those who betrayed and trampled on you is not drowning in hatred. It is not turning yourself into a cold-blooded demon. The most perfect revenge is living a life so brilliant, so successful, and so happy that those people, even if they stood on their tiptoes until their legs broke, would never again be worthy of touching the hem of your dress. Let them stay down in the mud, looking up at the peak of your glory with belated regret and bone-deep bitterness. My dear friends, the women reading my story, if anyone out there is in a situation where you are betrayed, oppressed, or looked down upon by your in-laws, I hope you never surrender. Allow yourself to cry, but when you are done crying, wipe your own tears. Stand up, put on your boldest red lipstick, wear your best clothes, and get to work making your own money. Build an impenetrable shield with your own two hands and your own mind. Adversity was not born to destroy us. Adversity was born to forge us into our strongest, most radiant selves. It is late into the night, but the city lights of Chicago are still burning bright. My story comes to a close here. I hope that through the storms that Eleanor Harper endured, you will find a little motivation, a little strength to take control of your own life. Do not forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Like and subscribe so we can continue to spread strong, positive life values in the next stories. Goodbye, and I pray that every woman in this world always finds the most brilliant sunrise after the storms of life. See you again. Have a peaceful night.